everyone, today we're going to be making Sapphire snake. It's a large project and we're going to need 9 pattern pieces and we're going to assemble them as shown. If you're a beginner sewer, just remember this is a project that would probably suit advanced or intermediate sewers. So you've printed out the pattern pieces and assembled them as shown in one big piece. Make sure that you match up the little triangles and the numbers, and then you're going to cut out the snake in a big coil. Also cut out the snake egg, the heart, the eye patch, the eye and the eyeball. There's a seam allowance included in the pattern. So when you're sewing, you don't need to worry about that. And also, once you trace the egg onto the fabric and the other pieces onto the fabric, remember to transfer all the markings. You're going to cut out the heart shape first, and you're going to need your sharp fabric scissors. So pop the 2 pieces of red fabric right sides together and place the heart shape on top and pin it in place. You could use tailor's chalk, but sometimes it's difficult to draw on this particular fabric. So in this case, we're just going to pin. Use as many pins as you need to secure the heart. Then take your sharp fabric scissors and cut around the edge, like so. When you've finished, take the pins out and you'll have 2 little hearts. And now that I've done this, I've realized you're actually only going to need 1 heart, so you can just have a spare. Now we're going to make the eye patch. So take 1 piece of fabric, fold it in half, place the eye patch on top and pin in place. Use as many pins as you need to, but 2 or 3 or 4 should be enough. If you like, you can use a pen to trace around the edge and then take the pins out to cut it out. But today, we're just going to use some sharp fabric scissors and cut right around the edge of the eye patch. Keep your fabric scraps, keep them aside, and we're going to use them later on for stuffing. Take the pins out and you'll see it says front facing and back facing. Just pop a little F on both sides of the eye patch, and so that you know that that's the front facing towards the tongue. Now we're going to cut out the eye, and it's got 2 parts. So we're going to have a white piece and a black piece. So the white is the backing of the eye and the black piece is the pupil. So you can see that I have traced the eye backing there, or you can pin it and then take your sharp scissors and cut round the edge so that you will have 2 eye backs, and then cut around a little bit fiddly with a pin there. The eyeball. So you'll do that twice so that you've got a pair, like so. So now we're going to cut out the pocket. I've pinned the pocket to a folded piece of fabric that's the same colour as the base of the snake. It's the blue colour with right sides facing together. Take your sharp sewing scissors and cut around the edges of the pocket. Like so. And then you can take the pins out. And you can see from the instructions on the pocket that this side's going to be placed on the outer seam and this one will go on the inner seam. So now we're going to make the body of the snake, but first of all we're going to choose the two pieces of fabric that you'll use, which are the top and the bottom. So for this project, the bottom is the blue and the top is the yellow fabric. So we're going to undo the pieces of fabric and lay them right sides together flat. When we talk about right and wrong side, this is the wrong, this is the right. So the right side is the piece of fabric that you want to see on the outside of the snake when you're finished. So lay the pattern of the snake on top of the fabric that you want to be the top of the snake. So we're using the yellow as the top. And so pin around the edge, use as many pins as you need to secure the pattern onto the fabric. You'll notice that there are still markings to be transferred. There's 3 places where we're going to leave the snake open when you sew. There's one there, one here, and one over the other side. So just note them and make some little marks when you're cutting out. Once you've pinned the pattern to the fabric, cut it out. Go right round the coil, taking care to cut right along the edge until you have one big long snake coil. After you unpin the pattern from the fabric, repin the snake using this different technique with the pins going in this way, and you'll see that we're going to now attach the pocket, we're going to attach the heart, and we've laid the eye patches and the eyes on the head, and this is the tongue, which is a piece of ribbon folded over about 14 centimeters long, folded over and pop it facing inwards on the head. So we're going to top stitch all of this first before we close it up and finish pinning the snake. So set your sewing machine to zigzag stitch and then sew on the inside of the eye patch first with a top stitch zigzag. Once you've done that, you can see that you've zigzagged along the inside of the eye patch. Just make sure that your eyes are positioned in the expression that you want. So I'm getting my snake, Sapphire snake, to look a bit sideways. Start at the part where the pupil matches the back white of the eye, and then zigzag carefully around the outside, first of all, of the white. You might just need to move the bulk of the snake around carefully with you as you stitch while you top stitch around. and lift and move the presser foot with your needle down in the fabric as needed. And once you come back to the pupil, keep going and do another lap around the pupil using the same zigzag stitch. Until you get back to where you started. Then you can snip the loose threads and remove the pins which you've had holding the eye patch in place. Repeat for the other side. As you can see, we have top stitched the eye patches, the heart and the pocket on. The eye patch we've used a zigzag stitch, and same for the whites of the eyes and the pupil. We've used a zigzag stitch over here for the heart, and we've used a straight stitch to attach one edge of the pocket. You'll note that we can put the pocket anywhere, either above the heart or below, depending on your preference. And we've also made sure that the tongue is still there attached to the head, ready to be sewn up. Use the same zigzag stitch to go around the outside of the heart. Reset your machine to straight stitch, and the last thing we're going to do is anchor the bottom edge of the pocket to the snake. By sewing straight along the bottom edge. So then you'll have your pocket, which has been attached at the bottom edge. You've top sewed on your heart, and you've done zigzag on the eye patch and the eyes. So now we're going to assemble the rest of the snake, ready for stitching around the coil. Once you've attached everything, flip over the snake pattern and finish pinning around this part, and make sure that you've noted the opening number 1. The opening in the middle is number 3, and the opening over here is number 2. So we're going to sew the snake body all together now, beginning at the opening called number 1, opening at the top. Do a short lock stitch and then begin sewing right around the edge of the snake. You're catching in the pocket. And you're going to catch in the eye patches. And this is where you're going to catch in the tongue, piece of ribbon, that's the tongue. Continue round the edge of the snake. Remember to leave open the parts where you've marked. Okay, so now we've fully sewn the snake and we're almost ready to turn it right side out. But before we do that, we're going to clip all of the curves. So what that means is we're going to put some tiny little snips inside all of the curved areas, because then when you turn the snake right side out, just find that there won't be as much strain on the seams. So anywhere there's a curve, which is most of the snake, you can just go around and just do some little snips. Just, yeah, take a lot of care that you don't snip through the seam that you've just carefully sewed. And if there's any places where you feel a bit unhappy with how it looks and you want to trim a little bit off, just go ahead and do that. But you're not going to see the seam, so it's really not going to matter. Now we're going to go ahead and turn the snake right side out, which is the fun part. We're almost there, and this is the part where you get to see if all of your construction process is going to turn into a snake. Oh, yep, there's the head. It's a little bit like turning a sock the right way out, or putting a pair of socks together in a ball. It's the same action, and you're going to be using the top opening. Just gently pull the whole thing through and out. Be really gentle, and if you need to, just tuck that in bit in there. If you pull too hard, you could snap some of the seams. And just continue to pull until you've got the snake. I feel like it's a little bit like shedding its skin. Keep going, keep going. This is the part of the project where you want to get in touch with your inner patience, because we're going to stuff the snake soon, and while that sounds like it might not take too long, it can also take a little while, so nearly there. And just down to that last little bit at the end. Gets harder towards the end because you've got that curly bit in the tail. So if you need to, when you get right to the end, you can get your scissors very, very carefully and find that bottom opening and gently put the scissors inside and ease out the final part of the tail. Just makes it a bit easier than trying to rustle it out with your hands. Right to the very tip. Roll the seams and turn the snake over. And got their makings of a snake with eye patches, eyeballs, little pocket, and the heart, ready for stuffing. Okay, it's time to stuff your snake now, and we've found that you'll use the best part of a whole pillow, which seems a lot, but it depends on how hard or soft you want your snake to be as to how much stuffing you'll use, but a whole pillow is a good guide. So start by taking very, very small pieces of the stuffing and fill the tail, the tip of the tail first. The reason that you're going to do really small pieces of stuffing is if you try and wedge too much in at the same time, it creates a ball and it seems to just pop out again. So you can see that I'm just pushing it right into the tip of the tail. So just continue with really small pieces. It'll push down as you go, and it might seem like it's taking forever, but persevere, because this is probably the most crucial step, and getting the stuffing right is really important. keep going until you are almost at the edge of the first opening. There. Continue on stuffing until the whole snake is filled, but just do this tail bit first, and then when you get to almost to the edge of that opening at the bottom, then stop and maybe do the head next. So you're going to stuff the tail, then stuff the head, and then use the space in the middle to then work your way to eventually filling up the whole snake. It's kind of like colouring in. If you've ever coloured in a picture, colour in the edges, the bits around the sides, and then fill in the middle. So then also you've got the scrap fabric that you've been saving along the way, and if you want your snake to feel a little bit heavier, then you can add some of that scrap fabric in between the little pieces of stuffing. So you can see that I've filled to about there. Just before you get to the end, put some of that scrap fabric, then it doesn't go to waste either. You could use it for other projects, but if you want to, keep it all together. Stuff it into the end of the snake, and it really will. It'll make it a little bit lumpy, give it some personality, and make it just that little bit heavier. You can see how the puckering is starting to disappear as you stuff. So this is what your snake will look like when it's finished being stuffed. Nice and firm, and you should be very proud at this point. Now you can see that I've ladder stitched up this opening here and the one near the tail, and I've got one more to do over here, but you'll also notice that there's an extra seam around the edge here that we didn't show on the last little bit of the video, and that's because if you wanted to fill your snake with pellets or lentils or rice to make your snake nice and weighted, that would just give your project an extra bit of stability so that the seams don't break and you don't lose all the pellets while children are handling it. So all that you would do is, before you stuff the snake, you would just run a top stitch right around the edge of the coil, obviously leaving the little parts open where you're going to stuff, and then you would just continue to ladder stitch them shut when you've done that. So I'm just going to use the ladder stitch technique here, where I've got some strong thread. Dental floss is a really good choice, it doesn't break easily, and a strong needle. I've knotted the end, and I'm going to pull the needle through from the inside until the knot sits on the inside of the fabric. Then continue by grabbing a little bit on the underside on the blue on the outside. So your stitch is going to look a little bit like a ladder. Sometimes it's called an invisible stitch because when you do 3 or 4 stitches and then pull it tight and disappears, so it makes your seam become invisible. So continue on with the ladder stitch right till the end, knot it, and then snip off your thread and you're done. So you've done it. You should be very proud. You made it. It's not an easy project, but you stuck at it. And at this point, you might be feeling like you made this snake because you want to give it away, but you might also be feeling like you want to keep it, and that's okay too. Thank you very much for having a go. And you can see that the more you play around with the pattern, you can actually give them lots of personality. As you can see, here's another snake we made that's blue and got different pockets on it, and another one purple, and we've got a purple sparkly heart. And so you know, you can make a whole bunch of snakes and they can look however you want them to look. You can make as many eggs as you need to make, and these snakes are actually going to be used and loved by many children, and it's going to really help us to talk to kids about really big, hard emotions and feelings. Just makes difficult situations that bit easier. So thanks again. You made it.